Hi class, this is the final recording for Chapter 4, Tissues. In this recording, we go over the structures, locations, and functions of skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscles. I'll describe the structure and functions of neurons and glia and nervous tissue, and we will list the locations and functions of mucous, serous, and synovial membranes. So to begin, we will talk about the muscle tissues, their structures, locations, and functions. Muscle tissue contracts and shortens with force. This allows for body and structure movements. The first type of muscle we'll discuss is the skeletal muscle. Its fibers or cells appear striated, which are banded or striped. The cells are long and large, with many nuclei per cell. The nuclei are often seen pushed to the edges of each cell. Skeletal muscle cells provide voluntary movement of the body or structure. They are located attached to bone or to other connective tissue. Cardiac muscle is the second type of muscle we will look at. Cardiac muscle cells are striated as well. They are cylindrical, but they are branched and have one nucleus per cell. They connect to other cardiac muscle cells via these structures called intercalated discs. These intercalated discs appear as a darker striation. In those discs, they have gap junctions, which allow one cardiac muscle cell to communicate with another cardiac muscle cell by allowing ions to pass through it freely. Intercalated discs are important structures that allow all of the cardiac muscle cells in an area to contract at the same time so that we are able to have the function of cardiac muscle, which is the involuntary pumping of blood. Cardiac muscle is found in the heart. The last type of muscle is smooth muscle. Smooth muscle cells are tapered at each end. They are not striated. There is one nucleus per cell. When you look at smooth muscle tissue as a whole, it appears to be wavy. Smooth muscle regulates the size of organs, moves fluid through tubes, regulates the amount of light entering the eye, it provides goosebumps in the skin, and it is involuntary. Smooth muscle is found in hollow organs like the stomach and intestines, as well as the eyes and the skin. The last type of tissue we're going to discuss in Chapter 4 is nervous tissue. Nervous tissue is made up of two types of cells. The first type is the neuron. These are nerve cells. Neurons produce action potentials, which are electrical signals. Glia are supporting cells that nourish, protect, and insulate neurons. On this slide, you will see the glia shown at the end of the arrow. It's that yellow cell that is surrounding the axon of the neuron. When we talk about the structure of a neuron, we typically look at what is called a multipolar neuron. And that's what's shown in this picture here. It has a cell body, which has the nucleus in it. We also could call the cell body the soma. Off of the cell body, there is one long cellular process that is called the axon, and that's where the impulse travels down to communicate. Also, off of the cell body, we have many dendrites. These are processes that receive impulses from something else, a receptor, a previous neuron, something like that. Neurons function to transmit information via action potentials. They integrate and evaluate data, and they store information. We find neurons in the brain and the spinal cord, as well as other nerves. The last topic of Chapter 4 that we're going to cover is tissue membranes. These are thin sheets of tissue that cover a structure or line a cavity. Tissue membranes are made up of two layers. The superficial layer is epithelial tissue, and the underlying layer is a connective tissue. There are three types of membranes that I want to go over. The first is a mucous membrane. These line cavities that open to the outside of the body, like the respiratory, digestive, urinary, or reproductive tracts. They have goblet cells that secrete mucus, and they function to protect, absorb, or secrete. Serous membranes line the cavities that do not open to the exterior of the body, like the pericardial, pleural, and peritoneal cavities. They function to protect our organs from friction. Lastly, synovial membranes line freely moving joints. They produce a slippery fluid that facilitates smooth joint movements. All right, so we described the structures, locations, and functions of skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscle. We described the structure and functions of neurons and glia and nervous tissue. And we listed the locations and functions of mucous, serous, and synovial membranes.